We're back now with Cynthia, and she's going to give us a tour of the Mandela. You see here the official exhibition. What a journey we're going to go through right now. So you guys, come on and follow us. Now, where are we headed to first?
So, the exhibition opens with a wonderful introductory film, which I think is fantastic because we don't assume that people know much about South Africa, about Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
So there's a lovely overview piece.
Wow.
It's about 5 minutes long. We also encourage people, if they don't have a lot of time, or if they've got real young kids and they don't necessarily want to go deep into the history, watch the intro, watch the exit film.
Yeah, smart.
Right?
Yeah. It's so much power just looking at this film here because it's black and white. That tells a whole nother story as well, And it's just amazing seeing the different stages of Mandela through this film here.
It is, because I think you pointed it out, it starts black and white.
Yeah.
That tells you his time period. It tells you that you're going back in time.
Right.
But then you also see that it changes over time.
Right.
Goes all the way through the challenges, go through the triumphs, to the legacy.
Okay. Well, where are we off to next?
All right. So we're going to start in the early years.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're walking into a very immersive space. Wow. This gives you a sense of kind of the fact that he grew up in a round house.
Yeah.
So you've kind of walked into his life.
Yeah.
Gives you a sense of his time period. So he was born in 1918. This is the early years, so him growing up tells you a little bit about his family, puts some context around the fact that he was born into a royal bloodline.
Wow.
We don't necessarily think of him as royal.
Yeah.
That's not something we often apply to Africa, but we should.
Yeah. And there's so many people that have royal bloodlines.
Have royal bloodline. And so it's important for us to call that out here. Yeah. And you also start to run into some of the first real stuff, the artifacts, right? So really understanding some of the traditional dress, what would he see on his family members? Yeah. I love the color.
Yes, it's so beautiful.
I mean, you can just really appreciate the beadwork, the colors. So there's so many layers to this exhibit. Yeah. Because of all the various artifacts.
Right. Now, would you say this would be like the size of the home? Have you guys replicated that to the T?
This is replicated to the T of about the size of the home he and his family grew up in.
Yeah. So many lessons that you can get out of this because, us as people, we're so used to having mounds of space. And, now you can look and see how you try not to take life for granted for the way that other people have lived,
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. So we come out of that house into this whole section is his childhood.
Wow.
So what was it like to grow up in the Transkei, in the area where he was growing up in South Africa? I love this because it gets to chores.
Yeah, chores.
Right? So we all do chores. We all have jobs that we all do.
Right. The one where we don't really care for, but we do them,
But we do them, right? So one of his jobs was herding cattle.
Oh.
And I think about that, and I think about the fact that so many people in our state still have that connection, whether they grew up on farms or not.
Right.
They understand farm life, and they know it's hard.
Yeah.
He grew up cattle herding.
Wow.
So as a very, very young kid. And you actually can see some of the tools he used to do that. Okay. This is the actual little cattle whip. It's not really a whip, it's more of kind of just directing them along.
Sure.
And there's a very important lesson in that.
Okay.
So that lesson, which his tribal chief taught him, was that you don't lead cows from the front.
Oh.
You lead cows from the back. You encourage their movement. And if one cow wanders away from the herd, his job was to make sure that that cow came back into the herd. And I think there's such an important leadership piece about him right there.
Yeah, that's where it starts.
That's where it starts.
Wow.
And I love that because I think it asks us the question, what are the lessons we're giving our kids and our grandkids?
Yeah.
What are we seeding in them that will be part of them for their entire life?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yes. So many different lessons. Okay. And what do we have here?
Okay. So now we've gone to school. And when you go to school, things change.
Yeah.
They really changed for Nelson Mandela. So to the point that he was given a new name.
Wow.
Nelson is not his birth name.
Wow.
So he had a tribal name. It's very difficult for me to pronounce.
Well, I was going to say
Role
that.
Haha is my closest approximation. I'm not good at the language, but so he goes to a school. It's actually run by the Methodists. It became important to him throughout his life, but it's also difficult because it's very colonial. And they say, oh, your tribal name, that's not a name we approve.
That was going to
You will be Nelson.
Yeah, that was going to be my point, because it's like, you know, so many of them had to change their name so that it could be palatable for everyone else. And
Correct.
This is a prime example of that.
Correct. And this is a story that we see throughout our country.
Sure.
Right? It's still a story that we see.
Yeah.
Oh, your name is hard for me to pronounce. I'm going to call you.
Right.
No. Spend the time, do your best, try to learn how to pronounce.
Right, yes. And it's so amazing how now these days people are stepping up and saying those words.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting with this picture. It's just so amazing to see him in so many different facets of his life. Like, you know, not that it doesn't look like him, but you know, it's like, that's not the Mandela we know.
That's not who we know, right? And I love that about history, because so often we hear, oh, I didn't think of them as young.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Martin Luther King.
Sure.
We forget that when Martin Luther King stepped forward and helped with the Montgomery bus boycott, he was 26, 27 years old. He was a young father with young kids.
Yeah.
We think of him as this dignified gentleman,
for sure.
very similarly how we think about Nelson Mandela.
Right.
That's partly how he dressed.
Yeah, sure.
So to get his message across, he always dressed very dignified.
Right.
It's an interesting thing to think about.
Well, sometimes that's just the way you dress is how you're perceived. So,
Absolutely.
And that's an important message for people also to learn. Not that fashion is a big thing, but you know, if it's who you are, you want to show people how you want to be perceived.
Yes. And I think this section, so in this section, we've gone to Johannesburg.
Okay.
We've graduated from school. We've gone off to the big city, right? We've had this experience. But in this case, it is his first encounter with apartheid. And so apartheid is an official government-approved system. It is legalized racism.
Yeah, sure.
And it is the moment at which you discover that the color of your skin is going to determine where you have access to, where you can live, who you can be friends with. He had not really had that experience. He had had it to some degree when he was at school, but it was going to Johannesburg that no matter how professional he was, no matter how he carried himself, no matter how he spoke, it did not matter.
Right.
Because he
Still
was black.
Yes, for sure. Now talk about this bench. You were saying that you've been noticing things as people journey through this exhibition.
So this bench is one of those pieces, right? So you can see the actual historic photo above it, that if you were white European, you could sit on this bench. If you were what was considered in South Africa colored, which was often Asian descent, many other things, or you were black, you could not sit on this bench. That was purely illegal.
Right.
So what we're seeing is a reclamation, and I love this.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is people look at this and go, oh, no. I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
And I think that is the moment of saying, I have the power today to do this.
Yeah.
Perhaps my ancestors did not. How can I claim that for them?
Yeah. And there's so many different ways that, you know, people of color are trying to reclaim that power, as you say. And it's amazing that they'll have that opportunity right in here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple, sitting down.
Yes, right.
But again, sitting down, we have the Rosa Parks bust in our collection. The power of sitting and not giving up your space is a very serious lesson.
Absolutely.
So I love seeing that.
Yes, of course. Now we'll carry on here.
So this section, we start to get to the Nelson Mandela that we know.
Yeah.
Which is the Nelson Mandela who said, I'm not playing by those rules.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. And he began to figure out how to push back. And so he joins the ANC, which is the African National Congress. He becomes the leader of their youth division.
Wow, okay.
So in this time in South Africa, and you can see the actual historic photos on the wall.
Sure.
If you are colored or black, you have to carry papers.
Oh.
And you can be asked to show your papers.
Like a passport.
If you are white,
yeah.
you do not.
Yeah. Wow.
And he said, I'm not carrying my papers. I refuse to participate in the system that says I have to do this thing.
Yeah.
So he literally burned them.
Wow.
This photograph became very, very famous all over South Africa. And all of a sudden, he's on the map as a troublemaker. So now the South African government knows who he is.
Yeah.
And they start paying attention. But this was one of his first real public acts of pushing back.
Yeah.
And I love it because one of the very simple things we have here, we have just what looks like a barrel.
Sure.
But if you peer down into the barrel, you see a fire. The radio will play, it plays some information about what he was hearing, what he was experiencing. It's so simple, but it's the moment of putting yourself in history and asking the question, what would I do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so amazing to see how that reclamation is transcending through generations. You know, he burned the papers, but now people are reclaiming their power with that bench. So it's just, like you said, it's very simple.
It's very simple.
Wow.
So this other section behind us is really about the importance of education. Okay. So certainly Nelson Mandela was a champion throughout his entire life that education was immensely important. So he has gone and gotten his law license. He's gone to law school. That's no easy feat.
No, not at all.
He opens Mandela and Tambo Attorney. Tambo, by the way, remains a lifelong friend of his.
Oh, wow.
It's really very interesting because he is claiming space. He is saying, you're not going to treat me like the person who has to carry my cards.
Right.
I am a person who is an attorney. I am a person who likes to go to jazz clubs on the weekend with my wife. I am a citizen.
Yeah. That he's just as educated as everyone else.
Yes.
Wow. Awesome.
And so this really gives you that, but it also gives you the context of that was not allowed.
Yeah.
Right? So it was the constant pushback. And you can imagine someone who's super educated, who is aware of their value. As Aretha would say, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, respect me, baby.
Yeah,
and so really thinking about that, where do you go with that? Right. So where he went with that is he became very radical.
Right.
And he said, no more.
Yeah. This exhibition is even more impressive because, you know, us here in America, we only think of what oppressions were here rather than the oppressions that took place all across the world.
All across the world. And this section is difficult. This is where we start to get into really difficult, right? So there's a replica bat here that shows you if you were protesting, you literally were facing being beaten, but then it escalated.
Yeah.
And the Sharpeville massacre happened, and all of a sudden, innocent protesters were being killed for protesting. And when that happens, it escalates things in us. And in Nelson Mandela, that escalated to the point where he said, I cannot remain a nonviolent person. I believe that I need to fight back. So he radicalized. But it was very interesting radicalization because he learned some of that by talking to other leaders all across Africa and also going to London and learning from others. And he came back and he said, yes, I'm going to be more radical in my response. I won't just fight you in the courts. But he said, I don't want to kill people. So they did a whole campaign of saying the South African government has said that these things that they're doing are illegal. We don't think they're legal, but we're not winning. So we're going to target their infrastructure. We're going to take down things like power lines or TV stations or things that won't hurt individual people, but will hurt the government and will make a point. Right. He eventually certainly is now on the radar of the South African police and the government. He eventually gets arrested. And this is the moment that we start to really know his story. His story at this point is actually known in our country by our civil rights folks in the 1960s.
Right.
Martin Luther King talks about Mandela.
Right.
Mandela talks about Martin Luther King. It's very interesting. While it's global, it is connected.
Right.
So he's arrested. What he is arrested for is something that he could be hung for. It is something that he could die. There is an amazing moment where he is on trial. It's the Ravonia trial. It's incredibly famous. He handwrites his speech about what he will say to the court. He takes the stand. He speaks in his own defense for 2 hours.
Wow.
The very, very last thing that he says is that this is an ideal for which I hope to live, but for which I am prepared to die. It is literally his belief that a freedom that will make it free for all people is something he is willing to die for. And he is on trial, potentially facing death. I mean, this is not theoretical.
Yeah. It's essentially like he's saying he's willing to sacrifice himself in order for the masses to be free.
Understand and to eventually be freed.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they instead say you're going to jail.
Yeah.
In part, I think, because the South African government was smart enough to understand that they were about to create a martyr.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So smartly,
Yeah.
they said you're going to jail, but we're going to shut you away in jail in such a way that no one will ever pay attention to you again.
Wow.
We're sending you to an island where you will have no access to anyone. We are sentencing you to hard labor. You're gonna crack up limestone rocks. This is what you will do.
Sure.
Oh, educated lawyer.
Right.
He endures that.
I think they underestimated the power of the labor that he
100%.
endured while he was a child.
While he was a child, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think too. I think that too, that he had grown up doing hard work.
Yeah.
He had also formed such a strong mind that this was not going to break him.
No, not at all.
And what was fascinating is that he, in most cases, could only receive a letter from his wife once or twice a year. He could only write her once or twice a year. So enduring in a place where you're completely separated, how do you maintain? And that's a question that I think is worth digging into.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's so many biographies, so many things he's written. It's wonderful stuff that's out there. But part of that writing is part of how he endured.
I was going to say that was part of his release.
It's part of his release. And there's a fascinating story. So we actually got to talk to Christo Brand, who was one of his last jailers.
Okay.
He wrote a book called My Prisoner, My Friend. They became friends. They found mutual respect. And Christo Brand told us an amazing story about all of Nelson Mandela's writings. The guards were trying to take them away. Mandela did not want his writings to be lost, in part because he needed to know what he'd said to his wife 6 months ago when he writes her again.
Yeah.
So he convinces the prison to allow them to create a garden. In that garden, he buries his writings. And they were found many years later.
Yeah, it's kind of like those time capsules.
It's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. But I think those acts of resistance, those acts of dignity, those acts of you will treat me as fully human.
Sure. And the creativity in it.
And the creativity.
Who would have thought of a garden to bury their writing?
I think it's brilliant.
Yes, it very
I think it's absolutely brilliant. So the other piece that's in here, this is a replica of the exact size of jail cell that he was in originally. Wow. It is tiny. I like to call this the jail cell made out of light because we wanted to be respectful for folks. We know that people have experiences of incarceration and we didn't want coming to this to be triggering. So it is a jail cell that is open.
Right.
But it is also a jail cell that allows you to think about space. You can barely lay down in this cell.
Barely do anything.
Barely do anything. And he endured 27 years of imprisonment with no chance of release because he'd been imprisoned to life. But eventually he negotiates release. And I think he negotiates release not only because he was so determined over so long, but because the South African government realized they had a problem. If he died in jail, again, they have a martyr. So they couldn't have that. So secret negotiations went on for about 2 years before he's released. He finally comes out. There's an absolute global celebration because at this point he is famous. So he comes out in 1990, and there's this wall of newspapers that we have from all over the world. All of these are documenting when Nelson Mandela walked free. And it is this famous photo. His fist is in the air. Winnie Mandela is next to him, fist in the air. And this was the entire world was aware. They knew.
Sorry. I was going to say it's amazing to see the same picture from publication to
publication, right? Oh my gosh. So this is a moment, and this is a moment we don't often have as a world anymore, right? To think about a single moment of news hitting all of us across the world. I think it's very interesting. So he walks out, he walks free, and yet the country is not yet free. They need to end apartheid. They need to get to a point of a actual open election of a democracy. That's not an easy piece. And so they were on the verge of a civil war. So there was a very violent 4 years after he was released, and there becomes a question, what will he do? So you see a trench coat that he wore and traveled in all over the world. We actually think he may have worn this trench coat to Detroit. It's a very interesting kind of thing. So he's traveling. He's being awarded for that endurance, for that perseverance, for coming to a place where it is a chance to make peace. So this gallery, on one side there are the peacemakers, and on one side there are the massive challenges that were happening. On the peacemakers side, you actually see Nelson Mandela and de Klerk, who was the last white president, holding hands, celebrating together. They have achieved this moment at which there is a chance for peace. You can see the actual Nobel Peace Prize that they're awarded. They're jointly awarded it. Which, I mean, I had never seen a Nobel Peace Prize before, so the amazing things that you can actually discover in this as well. And they're talking, and they're working out what will the process be. Unfortunately, not everyone wants peace. So there are a series of things that happen from 1990 to 1994. There are political murders that happen. Many of these are actually staged to prevent peace, to prevent full democracy, which I think is an interesting thing to be looking at.
For sure.
But there are also the moments at which Nelson Mandela realizes he can't go quietly back to his farmland. He actually must step onto the stage.
And that's something also interesting because, you know, he spent 27 years in prison. Like, he had all that strength then, but then he had to come out and be even stronger for everyone else.
Even stronger for everyone else. And so ultimately he negotiates that there will be the first democratic election. You get to see a recreation of the election ballot boxes. You see film here about the people voting. It was just an amazing, amazing experience. I imagine never having been legally allowed to vote.
For sure.
And getting to have that moment.
And that's why it's important for everyone, you know, all people of color, to not take it for an advantage, because it's like, you know, you see what everyone had to go through to give us that power to vote. So not just in South Africa.
Not just in South Africa, but it's true everywhere, and it's true around the world. And I think that is one of those lessons from this that I hope that young people take in. Don't take your freedom for granted.
Absolutely.
Because it is not a given. We fight for it and we maintain it. And we maintain it often through small actions like voting.
Absolutely.
So we come out of all of those challenges into the final gallery that's Healing a Nation. This is really thinking about his term as president, Most of the objects and artifacts in this space were actually collected by his personal assistant. He hired not a person of color as his assistant. He hired a woman who spoke Afrikaans. He hired a white woman because it was important to him that when you sat and met with him in his presidential office, you understood that he was walking the talk of what he was saying, that he was employing and reaching across and becoming friends with people that no one you would think he'd be friends with.
Yeah, you can't fight for being, for the process of being exiled from everything and then not expect to include everyone else.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is the actual suit he wore when he opened the South African Parliament as the first democratically elected president. I love that you can see the details of that and really think about, again, his presence. This gallery speaks to him going all across the world, the impact that he had all over the world. Really allows you to dig into those years. There's something interesting about Mandela. He committed to only doing one term as president. I think he could have probably been reelected for as many as he wanted. He committed to one because he truly believed in the power of democracy. And he said that I will only be president one time, and then we will have another vote, and there will be another president. And we will do this, and we will do this, and we will do this until it is what we do.
Yeah. It had to be someone to start it. And he said it was going to be him.
He started it.
Yeah.
So the other piece in this gallery that's incredibly important here is, so you've gone through this horrendous experience as a country.
Yeah.
How do you address that? And how do you transcend it?
Yeah.
And so this speaks about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC, that was established. It was not run by a politician. It was run by a man of faith.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think faith is so important to that story, right? How do we tell each other our truth? How do I hold this space for your truth?
Sure.
How do you hold the space for mine? And find a place of forgiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had to rely on his faith while he was in prison for 27 years. So, yeah, absolutely.
So I think this is one of those other messages.
That's awesome.
What are the opportunities that we have? And as I think about hosting this during the holiday season, as I think about those moments of joy and peace and the wish for peace across the world, what is one small step I might take from this that might build a little more peace? I mean, and if all of us take one step, how far can we go?
Yeah, that the further steps we take, the further we can go back.
Yeah. So this is the experience. It ends with his actual words in a final film, him speaking to you, the lessons he cared about, the things that mattered to him, whether that was about solving poverty and homelessness or whether that was dealing with the AIDS crisis, all of the things that mattered to him, you get to see in the final film.
Yeah. Well, that is for sure. This has definitely been an experience. It's kind of inspiring, especially for me being a woman of color. It's just, seeing what was fought for, our people and the people that are like me. And it's just amazing. And it's amazing that you guys have it here. So we appreciate you for allowing this message to be told through this exhibition.
Thank you.
Now tell folks how they can attend this exhibition, this journey, as they come here to the Henry Ford Museum.
Oh, it is so easy.
So
you just drive on down to Dearborn. We're very easy to find. You come to Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation. You either have a membership, we love our members, or you buy a daily ticket. And this exhibition is included with that, along with the entire museum.
Yeah.
So, as I think about the time we're in, we're about to launch our amazing holiday programs, the amazing 28-foot tall Christmas tree in the center of the museum, all sorts of fun things. But if you want to do that, great, come on down, have that. Make a little bit of time and see Mandela as well while you're here. And it's all included in your daily admission to the museum. So thehenryford.org, you can get all the details.
Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. It was a pleasure walking through this exhibition with you. as I mentioned before, it's very inspiring. So folks, if you're looking for an inspirational moment throughout your day, definitely stop by this exhibition. Thank you so much.
Thank you.